While biopharmaceuticals continue to grab much of the limelight in the pharmaceutical industry, the fact is, solid dosage products still account for the majority of medicinal products made worldwide. The reasons for this market share are abundantly clear. Patients are familiar with the dosage form and are comfortable using it. In addition, the industry has many decades of experience designing, formatting, testing, manufacturing, and packaging solid dosage products. The knowledge base is extensive. But as the industry moves forward, there are some hurdles to overcome in order to make the tablet of the future. Issues such as patient centricity, solubility, and bioavailability, conversion of parenteral products to solid dosage forms are all topics that need to be addressed. In this video documentary, we will explore how companies with a vested interest in the solid dosage format are working to ensure its viability well into the future. Even with advancements in other dosage forms and delivery methods, solid dosage products continue to be the most popular dosage form. The reasons for this popularity are many and varied.
Oral solid dosage forms are generally accepted by patients and consumers. It's a dosage form that's been around for quite some time. So people are very accepting of it and they see the advantages of that particular dosage form.
Well, I think there's a number of reasons OSDs continue to grow. I think, first of all, they're really well understood by patients in terms of how they should take the medication. They understand how to follow the instructions around it. The manufacturing has got a long history and lineage associated with the different technologies, the equipment, the considerations around the formulations, etc. So I think there's a really entrenched just knowledge base in the industry for it.
They are, of course, cheaper to manufacture. You have the ability to brand yourself, and also, with regards to supply chain, they are easier to transport, to ship, to also package.
A tablet is more protected from light, from moisture and air as a compact than other forms of medication. They really assure the potency and the efficiency of the drug throughout the product's shelf life.
I've worked on tablets which is 0.1 milligrams or 850 milligrams. Now, neither of those are a lot, but it's a huge range. It's 3 or 4 orders of magnitude. I can't think of anything which has got that similar level of flexibility.
Producing an oral solid product compared to a biologic, compared to a cell and gene therapy, certainly some major cost advantages. There's a large, well-established industry that is producing products at scale, producing them quite efficiently and therefore cost effectively.
Patients the world over have come to trust solid dosage forms for many reasons. Ease of use, convenience, and familiarity are at the top of the list.
The benefits to an oral solid dose medication is first the convenience of taking it, the administration. It can be taken in your home, it can be taken on the road, it can be taken on an airplane, as opposed to something that has to be administered in a hospital setting. So that's a huge convenience. The other advantage is that the drug is readily absorbed into the body systemically just by using the natural digestive system we all have. The disadvantages, however, are that they can be difficult to ingest, especially for a young child or a geriatric patient.
If the patient, visually looks at that tablet and that tablet looks uneasy to swallow, then chances are you're not going to get that patient compliant. The other concern with tablets is some patients want to split a dosage form even though it doesn't have a break line or it's not required or necessary to break in half. Some patients will break a tablet in order to save costs.
There are no mechanisms, there are no systems associated with ensuring that the patient is taking the pill when they're supposed to take it and as often as supposed to take it. So if you're treating a broad spectrum disease like blood pressure, for example, it doesn't matter if you take it at 7:01 or at 7:25. You took it in the morning, you took it in the evening, and that's good enough. But for drugs that are treating therapies that are fairly sensitive, HIV is a good example where you had to be extremely reproducible in terms of the dosing of that product. That's a difficult thing to not only enforce, but also to educate the patient of the consequences of not taking it. How do we ensure patient compliance with the actual regimen you have?
Even though solid dosage forms have been manufactured for some time, and the processes to develop and manufacture them have been refined, there are still challenges to bring new solid dosage products to market.
As you develop an oral solid dosage form, you have to be cognizant of the stability of the active or of the drug itself in that dosage form. You don't want it to degrade, so you want to make sure that what the patient is taking is actually the drug in the amount that's specified on the label. The other part that's of concern in terms of manufacturing is that because it's a powder blend that's eventually compressed, you need to be concerned about the content uniformity of that drug in the dosage form itself or within that powder blend before you actually then compress it into a tablet.
One of the biggest challenge the industry faces is poor solubility and bioavailability of small molecules coming out of drug discovery. It is very important to solve this challenge at a very early stage in clinical so that we optimize the dose and its absorption profile in early clinical studies.
With poor API solubility, you either have to use high amounts of excipients or enabling technologies. Now, these enabling technologies may be hot melt extrusion, spray drying, etc. But the problem is that they also lead to further down problems with regard to, for example, cohesiveness of an API. With high cohesion, there comes poor flow, which then leads itself to problems with blending uniformity, for example.
There are a number of technical challenges with respect to developing oral solid dose products, but I will say in addition to that, the business challenge is significant in the United States, that being the severe price erosion on generics, the downward pressure on pricing for pharmaceutical drugs in general to the consumers in this political climate that's requiring it. At the same time, we have to maintain a high level of compliance with the FDA and the Drug Enforcement Agency. And that compliance level is quite expensive. So how do you operate an organization with a significant overhead that is at the same time calling for very low-cost products? And this is the biggest challenge we're facing today, along with other CDMOs in this space.
The COVID-19 pandemic put incredible stress on the pharmaceutical industry. Manufacturers of solid dosage products had to take a deep look at their processes and specifically how they sourced APIs and excipients.
The pandemic has had an impact on the development of OSD products. From a CDMO's perspective, it appears and feels like the timelines associated with our projects has been shortened significantly.
It was an eye-opener, the pandemic, especially for the Western world, which has been outsourcing significantly, probably since the late 1980s and early 1990s.
Before the pandemic, we could get raw materials basically a week or two out. Now, some products we've heard supply chain delays of up to 1 year for certain ingredients.
Production delays due to factory closings, constrained labor availability, due to physical distancing requirements, recalls, increased demand, which impacted the pricing and availability. This caused a new need to test the quality of your materials, specifically with solid dosage forms. Particle size, morphology, distribution, moisture is all very important attributes to us, and the pandemic has changed the quality of these materials.
So I think there's been a lot of conversations in Europe and US and even in India around nearshoring or reshoring, or I think the Biden administration calls it friendshoring here, and that is bringing back some of these critical suppliers and manufacturing processes to areas where we've got the ability to more directly control, stockpile, influence, etc., their supply.
There's been legislation enacted that actually has given the FDA the ability to do remote audits and do unannounced audits. And this is actually, in my view, beneficial for the industry, is forcing manufacturers to ensure that they're meeting quality standards day in and day out, not just when the FDA comes and reviews their sites.
We've also seen regulatory agencies around the world, and the FDA in the United States, partner with manufacturers to speed new drugs to the market, particularly to meet the critical challenges of the pandemic.
Yeah, so during the pandemic, what the FDA, more specifically what we needed to do within the Office of Pharmaceutical Quality, is that we needed to enhance and really strengthen our collaborations with regulators outside of the US. One of the groups that we worked with is a group that was called ICMRA. We could do multiple assessments, ideally at the same time, and this way there would be no delay then in getting this product not only approved within the US, but getting it approved globally. The other part that we had to focus on were inspections, but we realized that we had issues with travel, especially during COVID-19. Depending upon the country where we needed to do that inspection, we would connect with that health authority where they would physically be able to go. We would then join remotely and to see the actual process if we needed to.
Do you get pushback from these international agencies that, it's like, oh, we're good, we don't need to change what we're doing just because you're doing it?
Maybe previously because some countries wanted to hold on to their regulations and they said, look, my regulations are different than yours. But you do need to sit down again, as with any relationship, you may start out divergent, but you need to whittle away and work towards harmonizing and bringing countries in to understand that this is the right thing to do. And I think the pandemic, at least in my eyes, really drove that understanding and the need to collaborate and rely on each other.
As solid dosage developers endeavor to produce more complicated and sophisticated products, many issues need to be addressed, such as bioavailability, patient centricity, converting biopharma products to solid dosage, and staying current with advanced testing, quality control, and manufacturing technologies.
Manufacturers needed to really pay attention to how they were addressing bioavailability, especially for an oral solid dosage form. Because when you take the product orally, it needs to be available to the biological system. And the drug needs to be dissolved, and then it needs to pass through the intestinal mucosa, through the gut, to get into the bloodstream so that the drug can then be taken to its targeted site of action. So there are a number of formulation ways to be able to do that. Particle size reduction, to be able to bring the drug down to a very small size. That allows the drug then to dissolve more quickly. There's also something that's called solid dispersions as well, where you take the drug and you disperse it into a semi-solid or a solid matrix. And that disperses the drug such that when you ingest it, it then liberates the drug into these finer particles.
Amorphous drug products and technologies like spray drying, hot melt extrusion, self-emulsifying formulations and liquid-filled, lipid-based capsules are some of the strategies that manufacturers are using to overcome bioavailability challenges and enable oral drug delivery of molecules that were once thought impossible to bring to market in an oral dosage form.
There are tablet designs in which you can actually make it linger in the stomach to compensate for poor solubility and hence enhance the bioavailability. So you see this as a hyper-focus actually now, because if you can adjust the intrinsic solubility of a active pharmaceutical ingredient, you can open that up as a potentially highly effective drug therapy when before it wasn't. One of the biggest byproducts of the COVID pandemic here is that the patient now wants to be part of their overall treatment regimen. They get to define what medical value is. It's not the manufacturer or the physician. And so in that case, having a drug therapy that treats the disease and treats those factors that are important to the patient has become a core focus. So for example, if your target population cohort is geriatric people and they've got to take this pill 3 times a day, compliance is a huge issue. So if I can do a single pill that perhaps is long-acting, that's a huge advantage to that patient. Now, it can't be a 1,000 milligram pill. So now I need to look at solubility enhancers and bioavailability enhancers to make sure that the modality I'm using to try and drive the absorption of that drug is happening there. So all of these sensibilities are patient-centric considerations that are happening at the drug design phase.
One of the things that we need to be concerned about is that there is a choking hazard that is potentially associated with oral solid dosage forms. What formulators would do to address that issue is they'd allow the patient then to pull that capsule apart and then sprinkle that powder onto some food. So there are formulation ways to be able to address those issues, but again, you try to address them during your development of that product.
We see manufacturers are being more focused on the types of platforms, the types of dosage forms they want to develop, especially when we're talking about a geriatric product or a pediatric product. So things like chewables or ODTs, orally disintegrating tablets.
Taste masking, we spend significant amount of time and effort and resources figuring out how to overcome bitter tasting APIs and being able to make products that are palatable for our patients.
The industry is becoming a little bit more open with regards to new excipients. specifically permeation enhancers, to convert biopharmaceuticals to oral solid dosage products.
That's a real Easter egg that's out there. So a lot of the large molecule products are not stable in solid dosage forms. And if they were taken orally, if you can get it stable in that type of platform, usually get degraded in the stomach or digested by the stomach acids rather than being effective and being absorbed into the body.
The question I had 20, 30 years ago, which hasn't really changed now, is why would you invest so much money in a pharmaceutical if it's just going to pass through the GI tract and into the sewage system? It's an awful lot of drug to waste.
There is some hope. There are a few peptides in the industry that have been talked about that have successfully become tablets.
Once thought impossible, and certainly early in my career, I saw these challenges developing injectable peptide-based drugs. And now we see drugs like that coming to the market in oral dosage forms.
We are seeing more drugs being evaluated in oncology space, immunotherapeutic space. These are categorized as breakthrough therapy designations, fast-track approvals, orphan drugs. Oral solid dose delivery does give us an opportunity to bring effective medications to patients sooner. We have developed in-house predictive modeling tools. We have a quadrant 2 model where we predict which technology applies best and which has higher probability of success.
Many pharma companies are trying to reduce the cost of quality by implementing process analytical technologies, for example, like near-infrared, Raman, inline, online, to measure quality in real time. What we've also seen is that they're leveraging more quality by design topics and even design spaces to increase process understanding and have flexibility in their filings.
Outsourcing these technologies to third parties is still the preferred methodology to get access to them. So if you need, for example, elemental analysis using inductive coupled plasma technology, it doesn't make much sense for a CDMO to go off and buy one of those tools for millions of dollars in terms of the purchase and then the technician who's trained and the maintenance of that equipment. It's better to simply outsource it. And the same is true for some of the LCMS technology that's out there. We would love to have those in abundance like we have with HPLCs, GCs, and dissolution equipment, but it's probably best right now to outsource those specialties when needed.
There is a great deal of conversation on the drug product side with continuous manufacturing. People tend to think of continuous manufacturing as mostly applicable to high volume products, but the reality is the other application of continuous manufacturing would be in those processes that require exquisite control. Not only can you go faster, because unlike a batch process in which you've got to do small scale and then scale it up to intermediate scale and ultimately to commercial scale, your small scale can be your commercial scale with continuous manufacturing. You just run longer with that. And so it greatly simplifies not only the characterization and quality arguments you're making there, but just from an operational perspective, depending on how you file that product, you could potentially have tremendous capacity or instantaneous capacity to respond to market fluctuations. So it's really up to industry to kind of decide that this is a direction they want to go.
Regulatory and standard-setting agencies the world over are tasked with ensuring the safety and efficacy of all pharmaceutical products. As solid dosage products form the bulk of these products, agency input and resources are valuable assets.
Both FDA, EMA, all regulatory or health authorities on a global basis fundamentally are very, very good about telling you what they want to see. ICH continues to come out with new guidances. Knowledge centers for things like continuous manufacturing, another resource in which they're putting out.
The FDA has a number of ways that innovators or the companies can come get feedback from us as they develop oral solid dosage form. And one of the ways to do that is to meet with what we call our subject matter experts, or SMEs. So having them talk to the industry or to talk to formulators as they start to develop these products is one avenue that can be pursued. Another thing we offer is called SBIA, and what we do there is that we actually have public workshops. Patient groups can come in and talk to us about some of the challenges that their patients face with dosage forms. The third avenue that we have is what's called intramural and extramural regulatory research programs. These are programs that are set up such that they help inform the FDA in areas of inspection as well as assessment of the quality aspects. And then the final tool that we use, which most people are more familiar with, are the regulations and guidelines that we establish and put out there. So one of the other things I do want to mention that's unique to my office, which is the Office of Pharmaceutical Quality, is that we have what's called the Emerging Technology Program. The industry can submit a request to meet with us if they have an emerging technology that they want to review, even before they start utilizing that technology to develop any product.
I think the big difference that much of industry has come to realize is that you can have the conversation with the FDA. Might be an interesting conversation, but you can still have the conversation with the FDA, which 10 years ago was not the case.
They're opening the doors to more discussions. For example, there's an increasing number of working groups. There is a nitrosamine working group, for example. You also have C-type meetings, ICH guidelines, you also have consortiums, and even IPEC that can lend itself to be a facilitator between drug product and also excipient suppliers for these discussions.
Guidance came out recently that will provide guidelines and limit levels for nitrosamine. Nitrosamines are an impurity found in a number of pharmaceutical products. The impact is that manufacturers are going to have to find ways of reformulating their products and being able to adhere to the guidelines and the limits for nitrosamines in the future by 2025 for staying under the nitrosamine limits.
As new and exciting pharmaceuticals are being developed in other dosage forms, there is no doubt solid dosage products will continue to be the dosage form of choice for most patients into the future.
I think there is an opportunity for coexistence. OSD products are here to stay. And what I think will happen is that biopharmaceuticals will transition to OSD products as part of life cycle management. There will always be a population that is averse to injections, for example. And in terms of ease of supply chain, there is nothing easier than transporting tablets or solid oral dosage products.
Oral solid dose is moving ahead. It's moving ahead with new technologies to improve bioavailability and solubility of difficult drugs. It is also moving ahead with respect to manufacturing techniques, where we're able to make more product at a lower cost than we ever have been before. Those things will continue to progress, and oral solid dose will continue to evolve just the way it has over the last 100 plus years. So it's not going away.
The future of OSD products, in my mind, is evolving trends with an emphasis on advanced oral drug technologies, including nanoparticles, combination products with multiple APIs, personalized medicine, tailored dosage forms for individuals, patient characteristics and genetic profile, and treatment responses or digital technologies like smart pills. And as a matter of fact, we're helping one of our customers right now develop a smart pill such as an electronic capsule for targeted drug delivery system.
We see a trend now that even large molecules such as peptides, proteins, oligonucleotides or enzymes, or even in some cases monoclonal antibodies are being evaluated in oral drug delivery.
As we look into the future, I anticipate even greater collaboration between universities and academic settings, CDMOs, and pharmaceutical and biotech companies.
As people make some of these pivots from biopharmaceuticals to oral solid dose, and we find ways to do that more effectively, and then tailoring them with these patient-centric elements, whether it be different API manufacturing processing technologies or co-processing of excipients in which, we've got simpler processes that can have higher yields. These are enhancements that are likely going to see in the next 5 years, and that's going to make it easier for folks to make tablets. And I think that's going to be pushing right along with the advanced therapies out there. So I would expect them to still hold onto their share of the market and still be the largest proportion of essential medicines that are manufactured around the world.
One of the things throughout my career, the holy grail, one of my dreams was to always have oral insulin, because you would get away with the injections. You don't have to worry about storing it in a refrigerator. Some of the preliminary things that I've read about show that there is some promise, but nobody's been able to bring a product like that to market. But if you could do that, could you imagine the accessibility you would have to insulin no matter where you go, without having to worry about refrigerate it, without having to worry about the injections, just being able to have the convenience of administering it by yourself is a wonderful thing if we ever get to that point. And I hope to see that within my lifetime.